Hi, welcome to Vertico, your new vet student podcast. It's Ariana. Today we are with Jade.
Hi.
And Margot.
Hello, everyone.
And we are going to talk about the impact of social media on veterinary practice. It's a topic that increasingly affects the veterinary profession, whether in client relation, communication, or even the public image of the job. In just a few years, the social media have become essential tools. They allow clinics to gain visibility, share advice, build connection. But they also raise many questions. Because when communicating as a healthcare professional, you can't say or just show just anything. There are ethical guidelines, reputation stakes, and sometimes tricky situations to manage. So I have a question for you. What advantage do you see in the use of social media for a clinic or an independent veterinarian?
I think we can identify a lot of different points. What I believe is the first thing is a good way to promote the clinic and all the structure. A good way to inform by improving well-being and healthcare. To reinforce the relationship between owner and vet staff, which is very important to create the trust. And also it's a good way to have feedback and it can help improving the service.
What about you, Jade?
I agree with all Margot said, but I can add that it can also contribute to help create a community, even with people that aren't clients of the clinic, and it can also be easy to make accessible content in social medias to inform a lot of people and touch a larger public.
Yeah, a good post can go beyond geographical limits and reach more than just the usual clientele. Which platform should be used and for what purpose?
That's a good question. I think, for example, Instagram can be used for small content with small videos to inform about a subject, like short content.
Yeah,
I think there is different platforms that have different type of public. For example, I think about Facebook, which is generally very used by older people, and it can also be important to be on this type of platform to inform them.
Yeah, sure.
And TikTok or Instagram, as Jad said, it's very good for short content and very dynamic video.
Yeah, as I've seen, Facebook is useful for connect with current clients and build trust. Instagram is for reaching potential new clients and increasing the clinic visibility. But there is also LinkedIn that can develop employer branding and hate recruitment.
Yeah, I think it's a social network that we don't really think about when we think about a platform.
But it's really useful.
Yeah, it's very important,
Another benefit of social media is improve search engine ranking and increase the web traffic to the clinic. Another question for you. Have you ever been influenced as a client or a professional by a veterinary content on Instagram or TikTok?
Oh yes, I think I have been influenced by this type of content because I watch it every day.
Yeah.
You know, we are vet students, so we see like content like that every day, and even if we think we are not influenced, I think we are.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think it will become a tool very important in our practice because it's a good way to connect with other professionals and to see what they are doing.
Yeah,
and
sure.
it can give us a lot of ideas.
I've seen it's also good to optimizing the brand image that it allows to showcasing the team and specialization, sharing client testimonial, and enhancing the role of prevention and advice, offering accurate information from professionals rather than random sources online. Another question again. Do you know what is e-reputation?
I will say that basically it's the reputation that you can have online.
Yeah, exactly. That's that. Any idea of what can be the factor who can influence it?
It can come from the community, depending on what people say. If someone has bad comments, the reputation will be.
Yeah, sure. This is
Exactly.
exactly that.
And I feel maybe it can be influenced by the type of platform that you use.
Yeah.
And the activity that you can have in this type of a platform, the type of content that you create, the
Yeah,
type
sure.
of thing that you put online.
So it's essential for vets to actively monitor what's being said about them and
Yeah.
what they say too. I've heard about some tools like Google Alerts that are specialized in e-reputation and some specialized e-reputation platform that track online mention and response quickly, like more courteous. There are more courteous responses to the negative reviews or just the reviews, and it allows to keep some contact with the community.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what are the limits that must not be crossed when communicating as an animal healthcare professional?
That's actually a good question. Maybe I think the vet professionals in social medias or in real life should not be in the judgment
Yeah.
of the owners.
Sure.
But
Of course.
that's a really good question. What do you think, Margot?
I will say that the first one may be obvious, but there is a confidential problem issues in our profession. So, for example, if you have a photo, an image that you want to put online,
Yeah,
but
there
you
are
don't
the
have
image rights.
yes, if you don't have the validation of the owner, you cannot do
But
everything.
about that, the legislation said that for the animals, the law doesn't require a permission, but it's ethical to ask the permission of the owner.
Yeah, I think it's also related to the build of trust that you have with your staff.
Yeah.
So that's an issue. And also I think it can be, I mean, it's more like a personal point of view, but I think it can be dangerous to give too much info, for example, on vet procedure, because some people can see that, generalize it, and auto-diagnose their pets without knowing.
Risky.
And yeah, it can create a lot of problem, and I can see like the issue and the limits of social media here.
Yeah, that's true. Because you can perform some techniques and the people will think it's easy and will try it on their pets, and that can be very dangerous.
And we have like 10 years of experience before be able to do that.
Yes, and also you can feel like your dog, for example, has the same problem, the same issue than the dog in the video, but it's not the case.
Yeah,
And
sure.
there is a lot of procedure of diagnosis, and you cannot just come and because it looks like you cannot do it.
Moreover, there are so many diseases that have the same symptoms.
Yes.
But a little one will say that this is this disease and not this one.
Yes, that's
and
true.
if you do not do tests and diagnosis or tests, you cannot say it's that or that.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, many diseases have same symptoms, and if you don't do the tests, you cannot know which of this disease it is.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, so I think it's a complex subject, and my last point will be criticism for two reasons. The first one is if you criticize, for example, owners, you can create an atmosphere of fear of judgment, for example, and it can be quite tricky because the type of people that you will judge, even if, of course, you can be right and see some issues in the way that they treat their animal, in the way that they handle a situation, it can create this fear of vets, and the owner can say like, I don't feel comfortable sharing my real experience because I just fear to be judged.
Mm.
Need to keep the professional tone and follow the code of ethics.
Yes, sure.
And it breaks, like it impacts the trust between the professional and the owner.
Yeah, sure.
And it is one of the most important things, I think, because we are the link between the animal well-being and the well-being also of the owner and the relationship between them. And the other thing is, it can be more obvious, but I think it's important to remember that. We also can be in a position where we are not in a place where we agree, with, for example, a colleague.
Yeah.
But there is a problem of deontology, and we cannot say everything. We cannot attack another vet, for example.
Yeah, that's the respect for peers.
Yes, obviously. And so it's also important to have that in mind, because we cannot encourage harassment, we cannot encourage all of that.
That's horrible, we can't do that.
Yes, and it's a big limit to have. Criticism is good, but we have to moderate ourselves.
We need to be objective and be professional.
Yes.
I have an imaginary scenario for you. Imagine that a video of your consultation is posted without your consent and goes viral. How would you react?
Okay, depending on how the video is turned, like,
Yeah.
is it a positive way of showing how we do that, or is it to criticize my practice? It's different scenarios, but if it's like a negative point of view, I think maybe I can press charges depending on what video it is. I can see with a lawyer, but that's not a thing people can do.
Yeah, sure.
Like, it's our work. You cannot put that on the social medias without our consent and say something and put it out of context. It's not. No.
Yeah, you're right.
But if it's a positive video and it shows something, well, it depends on how it is
Turn?
put. Yes.
Okay.
I see what you mean, and I quite agree. But at the same time, I feel like if you don't put some limits, it can be hard, because even if it's something that is very positive about your clinic, it's not about being disrespected, but it's about not being aware of what's going on, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I
And
just
you need to be credited for that.
yes,
Like,
and if
The
I
image
just
rights
Yeah.
are as much for the owner and the staff as for us. So
yes, obviously.
if
Yes.
the people doesn't ask us for posting this video, they don't have our image rights.
Well,
Yes,
it's
yeah.
illegal. It's illegal.
Yeah.
They cannot do that.
Yeah, I will feel quite surprised, and so it will give me mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously it can be positive, but I will be quite confused why not asking.
And maybe if it's something that you already posted yourself and someone is just sharing it.
Yeah,
I
think
would not.
okay.
I would not mind. Yeah, I would absolutely not mind.
Okay, next one. Do you know what's the difference between misinformation and disinformation?
That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
But I
That's
think
tricky.
we do, actually.
Yeah, yeah. If you can
Disinformation and misinformation. Maybe I
Yeah.
switch them because
switch.
Try.
Yeah.
Try.
yeah, because in English it's not the same as in French. But misinformation, I think, if I'm not mistaken, misinformation isn't like when you don't have the information, you don't know, and you just think it is. But disinformation is when someone gives you an information, but it's not the good one. It's false.
Oh.
Is it that?
I will say that misinformation is a problem of interpretation, but I'm not sure about that.
Not really. Misinformation is an inaccurate info, but it was spread without intention to harm. And disinformation is an accurate info, but deliberately spread to harm individuals, organization, or government.
Okay, so we did not know.
Absolutely
That's not a problem, don't worry.
But I think it's interesting because we use this type of terms without
Yeah.
really knowing the real
Yeah.
meaning behind that.
Yes.
And it's important to
Yeah.
put the right words because it gives the intention.
Yeah. And there is also another term that have come in health that is infodemic. That is an overabundance of information, and some reliable and some not, especially during public health crises like COVID.
Yeah. Okay.
So there are some impacts of misinformation on customers' perception of veterinary care, and misinformation and disinformation can spread confusion, hinder health measure, increase the risk of animal disease outbreak, including zoonoses, and cause economic and social fallout. We can also talk about the handling conflict situation of harsh criticism for vet or clinics. Question: how should a vet or a clinic handle conflict or harsh online criticism?
Okay, so I have a lot of points.
Yeah.
There is no order. It's just
Yeah,
basically
just go.
what I would feel if I was in this position. The first thing that I think about is remember that criticism, are not about your value as an individual. I think it's really important because
Sure.
when we are online, people can be very judgmental, and we can forget that it's not about you, it's about a subject. It can be objective or not, but you have to keep this sort of distance.
Yeah, and moreover, people like to hide themselves behind anonymously.
Yeah, the comments can be
Really
very
hard,
harsh.
yeah.
And it can also affect people. So it's important to remember that it's not about you. It's not about the fact that you're a good person or not.
Yeah.
It's another thing. The second thing, actually, it's more like a question that I have for you.
Yeah, let's go.
In this situation, like, do you think you should respond to all type of criticism?
To all type of
Yeah.
no.
You can go.
If the critic is constructive, you can respond like just thank you. It's constructive. It can help me. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
But if it's just a critic, just to be mean, just to underestimate or whatever, I don't think you have to respond to that.
And for that, many sites advise veterinary to respond professionally and empathetically, and try to, if there is a bad comment, try to show them that you understand and you are able to, you are disponible to have a conversation, a more deep conversation, even it's in private message. But you should stay professional and have empathy for them. And however, if it's cyberbullying, you need
of course
to go to the person and the competent authority. So your objective is to preserve the team's mental health. So
sure.
if there is no cyberbullying, don't go too far.
But I think it can be tricky because some people that have bad comments about you can be potentially your clients. So at some point you have also to. That's why I asked this question, because if you have a very harsh critic, but it's from one of your clients, what do?
I think we can talk to the clients in real life, but professionally, not insulting them or whatever, but just talk about them and just say, I saw you
understand why
I saw you said that on my social media. What happened? Did I do something? Just talk to them professionally to understand why they did that. And
Yeah, sure.
And not attack them because they were mean or something like that.
I think this is the worst thing to do, because obviously it will not put you in a better position, and even a worse.
Yes.
And the second point is you never know what the person is going through, and maybe they have lost their pets and they are very affected by that. So it's always tricky to respond with the same type of energy, and I think we need to be professional after all.
Yeah.
And so you talked about the importance of mental health.
Yeah.
And I completely agree on that. It's very important, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
And it can be the tricky part of it, because you have criticism, and it can be really... it can be often we are exposed to that, especially on social media. So it's a huge part of how to deal with that. And I think it's important to talk about it. If you feel overwhelmed, it's really important to talk about it, to find support in your team, for example. And it can also be important if you feel unsafe to press charge if it's necessary.
Yeah, that's obvious. And let's talk about some other effective strategy to debunk some myths that are shared in social media. Like there is the truth sandwiches. That's a strategy that starts with a fact. We introduce the myth, we explain how it misleads, and restate the fact with an alternative, evidence-based explanation. And the alternative cause explanation, that's a logical evidence-based interpretation to counter a myth or a false belief. And there are also some international efforts about myth in social media, like the World Health Organization or Interpol. They have guidelines to anticipate, detect, and respond to misinformation. Do you know what is HEOS and what is it for?
No idea.
Yeah, I have completely no idea on
No
that.
problem.
You need to,
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
you need to explain it.
Yeah,
Enlighten us.
sure, no problem. This is the epidemic intelligence from open sources that was created by the WHO, and it's about to detect early global health threats using public data, including media and social media. And it's about to improve epidemiological surveillance.
Okay.
So the international organization try also to fight against misinformation and disinformation. So that's a great point.
Yeah. We are safe.
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about the influence of online discussion on the image of the profession.
Okay.
And this is for you, vet student. How has social media influenced your view of the profession?
Oh, I love this question. There's a lot of content, so depending on the content, it can influence the perspective of the profession, but I think it made me realize what it is to be a vet, because a lot of vets make like humoristic content where young vets make a video about a typical day in a vet life, and you can see that it's not all perfect. It's not just helping animals and it's funny and it's cool. No, like sometimes you have a boring day where it's just vaccines and controls. Sometimes you can have emergencies, and it made me realize it was not how I thought it would be to be really a vet. But I like it. It's good. It shows the real side of the job, and you can see many different perspectives from many different vets, young, older, from many different
even different countries.
Yeah, also.
Sure.
Yeah, and feels like if you are in emergencies, or if you are in physiotherapy, or if you are in dermatology, it's not the same things you do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to open your mind about a lot of things, a lot of different practice, a lot of different points of view also, and way of dealing with the profession. And I feel like as a student, it's also a good way to keep your motivation, because you see what you're studying.
Yeah.
And you see how you can apply that in the real world, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
And it's helping us also, because sometimes you can see, you can learn from content, and it's sometimes that they're interactive content where you have a practical case. They ask you, what do you think it is? And they explain to you what it is, and it's good for training for vet students like us.
Yes,
yeah,
and there are also some accounts that help you to learn, but more deeply, like anatomy, physiology, or anything like that. But what I've seen on the internet is that for vet students, the online portrayal of the profession can affect career aspiration. Like especially with the repeated exposure to the toughest aspect of the jobs, more with clients. We are, as vet student, we see more quickly how client react, and for some they feel that it will be difficult.
But my question is, does it really impact our mentality, or does it just show us the reality and makes us do the choice before?
That depends on people. Some will, with those information, will completely abandon the courses.
Okay, because I feel like we in this profession already have an issue about a lot of myth, a lot of idealization that we live with.
Yeah.
And when we are starting to take a job, we have this huge delusion.
Yeah.
And we see the reality, and a lot of people quit, and not maybe during the courses,
Yeah,
or
sure.
not at the end, but 2 years, 3 years after.
And that help for the lack of professional.
Yes.
And for the general public, the social media can have a positive or a negative impact. For positive, they have advice from professional. They can have touching stories, medical success build trust, that can reinforce the image of a veterinarian as caring expert. But for the negative one, there are viral criticism, rumors, and misunderstood cases that can harm the reputation of a clinic or the whole profession. So social media's virality amplifies perception. Vet must communicate carefully to maintain a coherent, professional, and ethical image. So, another question. Do you have example of positive or negative influence? You do not?
No.
That's not a problem. I have some for you if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Like for the negative, there were video clip misinterpreted. Like a short clip of a consultation filmed without the vet knowledge and taken out of context was posted on TikTok. The footage gave the impression of rough and the handling of an animal when in fact it was an emergency medical procedure. The lack of context triggered a bad buzz and led the online threats against the practitioner.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story, because I feel as a professional we are used to certain type of practice, certain type of handling, yes, that are very particular, and we have the context and we know how to do it without causing pain.
Sure.
But in a different point of view, if I don't know anything and I see that, it can be seen as quite shocking.
It's shocked.
Yeah.
And so we need to inform the owner. We need to say them why we do that and why we done that.
Yeah, sure.
And I have a positive experience too. Skillful management of a negative review. A vet received an unjustified comment on Google reviews. Rather than deleting or ignoring the review, he responded professionally and courteously, providing clear and reassuring explanation. This response was praised by several internet users and helped to reinforce the clinic's serious and caring image. So, there are two kinds of reaction, and we need to know that when we are on social media.
Yeah, sure.
Now, to conclude, social media can be a real asset for veterinarians that improve communication, it's spreading useful information and promoting a positive professional image. But it also comes with risk, poor management or harm reputation, and misinformation spreads easily. The key is through full, professional, and ethical use. Use well, those tools can strengthen client relationship and support the advisory role of veterinarian. And I have the last question for you for this podcast. Do you follow any vet or animal related account on Instagram and TikTok? Do you have any recommendation for us?
Oh, yes, I have. I will only give 3, but
Okay.
I follow a lot. But the 3 I particularly love, there's 2 French accounts, so sorry for a non-French speaker, but the first one is L'Instant Veto, which makes very accessible content. It's like some advices. They also do some reaction video to some owners that make videos of their pets and everything, and it's very accessible, very understandable, and the short content, I like it.
Okay,
Very
that's
interesting.
cool.
The other one is more for a student or vets. It's Le Veto Dermato. It's a specialized vet in dermatology,
Okay.
and every day he posts clinical cases in his stories, and you have the answer the day after. It's about, clinical cases. He show you something and he asks you what do you think it is. There's a survey, a poll to choose what do you think it is. And you have the answer the other day, and it's good to practice your knowledge, to see if you can recognize something like, the vets will know what it is, but actinic keratosis.
Okay.
That's an example. The last account I love is the Dog Wellness Center. It's an account of a physio center in Australia.
Okay.
And in this account make a lot of content like how to handle your dog, to learn you to do some massages, to do some exercise with your dog to keep them fit. And I love this because, I'm into physiotherapy, I'm into rehabilitation, and it's very good because they give a lot of advice on your pet's anatomy and your pet's well-being, physical well-being. They also help you to choose harnesses that can
Fit.
that
Fit
fit well the
the
dog
body.
without creating any harm, creating any problems on the long term. This account is my favorite of all. I wish I could do an intention.
Yeah. So thank you very much for this podcast, and this is the end. So thank you for following Vet Echo, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.